Every person has a story, but not everyone has a place to tell it. I'm Frank Swoboda. I've interviewed amazing people all over the planet. I want you to meet them. This week, the most interesting person you've never heard of is...
I'm Kevin Parker, and Frank says I'm the most interesting person you've never heard of because I've met some pretty cool people.
Well, Kevin Parker,
one of the best dudes ever.
Welcome to the most interesting person you've never heard of podcast. And people have heard of you, but not everybody's heard of you.
Very few.
No. You're the most interesting Dutch Bros owner that I know.
There's a lot cooler dudes.
I don't know. So how long? Last time I saw you,
yeah,
we were
having fun.
We were having fun.
Lots of fun. Describe
it. As if you're Howard Cosell.
Yeah, we were at the Final Four together, and then the championship game. That was the last time we were together, Gonzaga versus Baylor, and boy, that was a painful night, wasn't it? But the UCLA game was unreal. Saw one of the best shots ever in NCAA history.
We were literally right next to each other.
Yeah, we were.
You and Nick.
You were a good luck
my
charm.
son Nick, your wife. I cannot remember.
It was Carrie. And it was a treat to be sitting next to you. I was like, whoa, I got the good seats.
Yeah, it was surreal because I remember just looking at you and Carrie, and you're just like, what just happened? And we had the same experience that I've told this before, even on the podcast, but the time stopped.
For sure.
There was a beat where everything was still and nobody knew what exactly it just happened.
After Suggs
at
hit
least
that
in the
shot.
building.
Yeah, after Suggs hit that shot, I remember a moment. Yeah, that's what you're talking about, right?
Yes.
That he hits that shot, and I remember the crowd being like, "Wait, what? Oh, we're supposed to cheer. We won."
That's right.
I remember thinking,
did it go in?
The whole
did that really go in?
Yeah, exactly. The whole game, I remember thinking, I got to get a flight home the next day.
No.
If they don't pull this thing out,
I'm
totally
throwing you under the bus, Parker, because you were literally on your phone looking for a flight.
That is so false.
And I'm like,
that is so false.
And I'm like, what a loser fan.
False. So good.
No, I know. You told me that afterwards. I'm like, you were probably looking on your phone right there. No, there's no way you could keep your eyes off that game.
Oh, my
It was back and forth.
We should watch that again.
Dude,
I should have you over and we should watch that game.
We should watch that again. I know, and Nick got a shot of us. He got a shot of us. Yeah. What? He put it on his Facebook page. I will send it to you.
Please.
He had the presence of mind when that went in to pull his camera out.
No way.
Yes, not when it went in.
I want to see that shot.
But I mean, literally, Suggs is on the table. So when he jumps on the table,
and are we going like
he's
we're going
pointing
nuts?
Right at us, right? Suggs was right. He's pointing up. Right,
I had no idea.
Right at us, right? I mean, that's where Suggs was when he jumped on that table. It was directly below us.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's pointing right at us, and then Nick got the camera.
I think he was pointing at you, and then I was trying to flag him down. Hey, it's not just all about Frank, man. It's me too. He's not the only cool one in the building.
And he totally ignored you.
Son of a.
Like the goat he is.
Yeah, exactly. It's so good.
Well, that was pretty. I was just thinking, we should probably name it. No one's really named it. Like Edgar's double, and for the Mariners at 95
shot heard
single.
around Spokane.
Yeah, the shot.
The shot heard around the NCAA.
Know. It's already like third.
Well, I think about the
third greatest finish in
well,
NCAA
think about
history.
that. You had the Hoosiers versus Syracuse, and was that 85 or 86? Keith Smart's baseline shot because Alfred threw it into
Jordan still.
Who did Alfred throw it into their post? Couldn't get the shot off. Kicked it out to Smart, who was flipping burgers at McDonald's at the time.
That's right.
On the baseline,
That's right.
unexpected. He sinks that.
No NLI then.
And then you had Leitner's shot, Jordan's shot of 84.
Jordan,
he was a
84.
freshman when he nailed that shot for UNC.
Yeah, he was. I know.
And then
Villanova.
That's in the top 10 shots.
Villanova a few years ago.
Yeah.
They
that
won
might
at the
even
buzzer.
be a top 5 shot.
I think it's It is top 5.
Is it ranked?
Yeah, right
top
now.
5?
Yes.
That's amazing.
We were there.
And he pointed at you.
Yes, he did.
Like, hey, Suggs, over here, man.
He was looking at Carrie. He wasn't looking at any of us.
Yeah, exactly.
I just to go way back, because I want to make sure I get this, because getting you, first of all, to this podcast is a minor miracle.
No,
you're so busy.
No,
you are. And you got to go pick up kids, and you're a great dad, and so we're going to do our best to cram this stuff in. But you were at Columbine.
Right. Explain
this, because it's had a huge impact on your life, no doubt. And that's really the question I have is, what imprint has that left, and what did it, I hear about people all the time that have these sort of, life-changing experiences, close to death experiences that instantly wake them up in a way that they weren't before, and say, I'm going to take advantage of every moment.
Right.
Where were you? What happened, and what did it do for you?
Well, it did everything. I was inside the cafeteria, and so when the shooters started to make their shots on the outside, I had just got down to the cafeteria. I was meeting a kid named Tony Sonderby, or I went down to hang out with some kids.
So this is the shooting that happened at Columbine High School.
April 20th,
really one of the first mass shootings, honestly, of
it
at least at
actually
a high
wasn't
school.
The first.
Wasn't
People
the first. There was one here.
It's the first It's the first one that was carried live, and so that's why when you ask people where they were during Columbine, most people can tell you exactly where they were. I've heard airports. I've heard
Barry Lukaitis was here, even in this area before that. Correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, he was.
He was.
No, it was. Yes, he was.
I think it was.
And there's actually shootings and school violence goes all the way back to the 1700s. The tools that have used have been different, and it's not just an American problem; it's an international problem. So let me take this a couple different ways. So I went down to the cafeteria. I was supposed to meet a kid who was a kid who smoked a lot at the school, hung out at the smoker's pit, named Dan. And I'd wanted to hang out with Dan and his friends forever.
And you were doing what there as a child?
I was working for a youth services organization.
Inside the high school?
In Colorado. So I knew a large portion of the student
But you were there every day at the school, pretty much? 2
to 3 times a week, probably on average. And then, so it was very typical. I normally was not there on a Tuesday. That was rare. I was normally in the office on a Tuesday. I was there usually Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then Dan doesn't show up. So I make my way down to the cafeteria. And so I'm down in the cafeteria, and I'm probably down there for 30 seconds when we start to hear the janitor, Dave Sanders, who later lost his life saving all of ours, and another janitor running the periphery. Dave was a teacher and softball coach, running the periphery of the cafeteria, yelling, "Get down, get down." And I remember very clearly, I remember being under the table on the cold tile floor, hearing gunshots. We would have heard the shots that took Rachel Scott's life, who was an incredible individual. We did not know that's what the shots were doing at the time, but we heard him get closer, and then we also heard a lot of silence. And so imagine 500 high schoolers and one adult. I was 23 at the time, or 25 at the time. I'm the only adult volunteer inside the school, which was rare. Normally, Columbine had a ton of volunteer parents. So for me to be the only one was literally...
This is a big high school.
Yeah, big high school. It would be comparable to Meade. Meade is probably the high school, or Shadle. Those two high schools resemble Columbine more than any other. And so we're under the cafeteria, and I remember it being eerily silent. 500 students under tables, and you could hear a pin drop because we all knew something was seriously awry. I remember thinking, I'm never going to see my wife again. I'm never going to have another Christmas. I'm going to die on the cold tile floor of a cafeteria. Pipe bombs started to go off, and that set the student body in motion. A kid named Tim Madison, who I'd known for years, he was the one who led the charge from the cafeteria up the stairs. It was like the cafeteria, a lot of people probably have the visual of it because it was carried so extensively on TV, but it's a half circle of windows, basically. And the shooters had arranged bombs and had detonated the entry point. So they were waiting for a door to open because that would detonate a bomb that they put there. We took the most illogical route that was not planned. We ran up from the west wing of the school to the east wing. We ran from the furthest point of the school to the other furthest point. If students would have taken an exit door in any way, and a few did, they got blown up and seriously maimed. And so we ran through the hallways, from the back of the school to the front of the school upstairs. Dave Sanders was an amazing teacher. He got shrapnel on his back when he was climbing the stairs and helping students out. He stayed behind. We all left. And I remember thinking, as we're running up the stairs from the cafeteria to the main floor, and I could hear the gunshots in more rapid succession, my curiosity wanted me to turn around. But I remember thinking, if I turn around, if I take a bullet, I'd rather take a bullet in the back of the head than the front because the skull is thicker in the back. And so a lot of us running, we expected to get shot. Tony Sonderby, a kid who, when I walked down to the cafeteria, called me over to the center of the cafeteria, which was within probably 10, 15 feet of the largest bomb. I was right next to it, according to the FBI. I met with the FBI the next day, and because they wanted to meet because of me being inside the school there, meeting with everybody. And Tony stopped. He ran into a choir room. I grabbed his arm and I said, no, run outside the school. And Tony and I are kind of bonded for life as a result of that moment. And I'd already known him as well. No. But how I want to tell one story, Frank, and then I'll answer your question if that's cool. But
yeah.
There was There's a couple miraculous stories of what students did. One of them was one of the really large, muscular football players, like 6'2", solid muscle, really a lot like me.
Yeah, right.
I
sure.
mean,
Very similar.
muscle.
Wow.
Yeah,
Eerily so.
Yeah, and I'm all natural. And he was he was in one of the rooms that was rescued later in the day. The shooting started at about 11:19, 11:20. The gunmen were dead by noon, I think it was. You'd have to Google the top fact check that one. But I think they were dead.
That 40 minutes seemed like 40
by,
years to you, probably.
Yeah, they were dead by 12:15, 12:30 at the latest. And we were outside the school, and at that point, so I got out in the early wave. There were students that got out before us. We got out probably in the second or third wave. But then there was the third and fourth wave were people that were locked in classrooms that were waiting for SWAT teams. And when the SWAT team came into students, they would tell people, don't look down, walk as fast as you can, do not run, stay in line. We have a SWAT member in front of you and behind of you. You just keep moving no matter what happens. And so those were the instructions like 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old kids are getting, or really 15 through 18. And one of the kids, who was really kind of a gruff kid, he gets in the paddy wagon or whatever the big, large police vehicles are called. And one of the girls running out saw one of the dead bodies and out of shock urinated all over herself. Yeah. So everyone gets to the big police vehicle and they're all in seats except that girl was the last one to get in. And she stood on the end and she had urine all over herself. And this football player picks her up like a little rag doll and places her right on his lap. And there are so many cool stories of students just looking out for each other like that.
Wow. Still with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What'd you learn? Because it's still going on.
Still learning.
It's still going on.
I think it gave me a passion for leading and what it means to lead well and thoughtfully. There were not leadership books at the time. This was 1999, so they just started hitting the bookshelves. It was a new discipline. I went the next day. I went down to Barnes & Noble. There was no active shooter training. There was no discussion of leadership. Was very blonde and very bland, I should say, and very elementary. And I went down to Barnes & Noble, I think the second day or so, because our condo was littered with Columbine students. The night of the shooting at 4:30, they just started coming over and kept doing that for about a year and a half. And we would have between 10 and 90 students in our little 900 square foot condo, and they were grieving and crying, sometimes laughing, bonding, talking, processing. It was really a surreal but really special experience. But I remember going down to Barnes & Noble a day or two after, feeling so over my head and ill-equipped. And I bought the book Lincoln on Leadership. It just stood out to me, and I'd liked Lincoln, and I thought, maybe he has stuff to say. And that literally was a guide for me. The cover said Clinton's Leadership Bible. And I thought, okay, if the President of the United States gives value of this, I probably can too. And so that book they're very simple anecdotal concepts that everyone would know today, but at the time, they were very instructive to me. And so it developed a lifelong passion. And now I'm working on my PhD at Gonzaga in organizational leadership studies.
Right.
My dissertation is in resilience, and I'm studying Columbine survivors since I'm in relationship with so many of them, and really studying the idea of how does the brain handle stress? How does the body? What do we do with it? Why does this generation feel more stressed than ours? Is it because they have vocabulary for it? Is it because it's socially normalized? Why is that? And so it's impacted me enough to where 22-ish years later, I'm still studying resilience.
Had this event not happened, do you think you would have? Because you've achieved a ton of stuff. I know we don't have a ton of time on this podcast to talk about.
Well, if you let me
stuff,
come back, I can.
I would love to. Yeah, you can come back today if you want.
You're so
but I mean, you're a member of the State House of Representatives, right?
Yeah,
You're in Washington State.
Yeah. You
are an owner of. You're going to open your 11th Dutch Bros. Congratulations.
Actually, we have number 12 online.
Number 12 online.
I don't know when this airs, but yeah.
So 12. I'm sorry, 12.
Coming up to 12. Coming up to 12.
You've taken on a ton of things and with an incredible attitude and a lot of fun. Do you think you would have tackled all of those things had this event not happened?
No. I feel like I've had a lot of lucky breaks, Frank. I feel like Columbine taught me a couple things. One, 95% of life is about willing to show up. And that means showing up when there's stress. It means showing up when the others won't.
That's right.
It means showing up in the rain.
That's
means
funny.
showing up in the sun.
I had a professor at Gonzaga, Father Steve Cooter, was a legendary guy, amazing guy.
Yeah.
He was my advisor, and he would, you're much more positive than he is, obviously, because he said 80% of success is showing up, and you're telling me 95. I think you're right.
It's so good. And then
it's true. Even when you don't, especially when you don't want to show up. Right?
And then I remember, I was a screwball student. You know, after my junior year, I had a 1.8 GPA, 32 C's and D's and 2 F's, right? And then senior year of high school, I started to realize I actually love knowledge and I love reading and I love this stuff. And so I got into people like in college, I got into reading Henry David Thoreau, Emerson. I just ended up loving these thinkers. And under the cafeteria, one of the things that was going through my mind for some reason, I think God implanted it, but what was going through my mind was Thoreau talking about living deliberately and going to the woods. And I remember being under the table and telling God, if I get out, I'll live deliberately. And I think with deliberately comes an urgency. So my wife would say it's actually a flaw in mine that's worked out very well in that I do view life as pretty short and pretty fast. And so I try not to waste time.
See, I thought it was just the coffee. I thought it was just the caffeine.
Yeah, that's so good. That's good.
No, that's amazing. I mean, that's a really good. You were actually literally thinking that when you were there.
Yeah, I remember telling God, I'll live deliberately. And for me, it meant how do I change this stuff? And that's partly what led me to politics. And then I realized, though, I'll never go back into the political arena. I've got no intention. I really was so honored for a guy like me to get to serve Washington. And I have great friendships on both sides of the aisle. I wish we had more bipartisanship today.
Yeah,
I think the eagle has two wings, the right and the left. Both are necessary for flight. And there's value and there's great ideas. Everyone on both sides, they love the country and they love people, right? And they're people who want to make a difference. Those are the kind of people that we want. So I wish we had more of that. But I think for me, it kind of, when I entered a race I never should have won. I was in third place. And what was, probably my favorite moment, I had a couple moments I really liked in the political arena. One of them was during that first campaign where I got my opponent, we were in third place, it's August, it's theirs to win. And my opponent started.
It's late.
Yeah, or maybe it was late July. It was late. Ballots were about 10 days from dropping, so maybe it was probably mid-July. And
primary, yeah.
Yeah, primary. And my opponent started saying, who turned out to be a very nice guy. Both my opponents were, and he started saying, I'm not the candidate who has a history of low underachieving in high school. I'm not the opponent who has a history. I'm not the candidate who has a history of throwing underage parties. I used to throw a lot of parties in high school. And then
you and I have that in common.
Yeah, and then and I'm not the opponent who's got a history of what else did he say? Owns property in another state because I owned a little something in another state. And then he just hit me again and again and again. And then I came, and it was one of those moments we had never thought about. And I was kind of proud of the people that have come around me because they've changed my life. And this relates to Columbine. And so Columbine again taught me, hey man, you get one chance. And so it was always just we had a go for it attitude, and that came directly from Columbine. And I responded to the opponent, and I responded to the crowd. I just didn't know what to say. And the words that came out of my mouth were, how do you know all that stuff? And everyone thought I was like making a joke, and everybody started laughing. And so I leaned into it. And I said, let's get one thing straight. If you're going to call me about underachieving, let's make sure the facts are right. And I'd like to correct you. It's not that I was just underachieving. It's that my grades were a 1.8. I was in the bottom 10 to 15% of my class. Frankly, I thought it was a miracle I wasn't last. And people started laughing again. And so then I said,
brilliant.
I'm not a kid. Own it. I wasn't a kid that people would have looked at me be a role model. And I may not even been a kid you wanted me to date your daughter. But I'll tell you what, on a Friday night, I think you would have enjoyed hanging out with me because we would have had a blast. And everyone started cheering. And then, Frank, I ended it by saying,
right.
I really appreciate my opponent's comments because he just illustrated that in the end, this country still works. I had a 1.8 GPA. I had no future. Someone believed on me. Yet I'm standing next to a guy who says he had 4.0, very accomplished, way more accomplished than I am, but I'm on the same stage. And so what I'm learning from you tonight is that America still works.
Bingo.
And then it was like something
game
happened.
Over.
Something happened.
What happens is it's the old I want to have a beer with that guy. I'll vote for that guy because I want to have. I feel like I could have a beer with him.
I did have a lot of beer with people in high school.
But I mean, but people want to vote for somebody that they relate to, and the 4.0 square isn't the guy necessarily sometimes, right?
But what's really fun is business and people.
Bravo for you.
Thanks,
that's an amazing moment. That's like right out of the president
the West Wing.
The West Wing. No, the movie the movie with. That it was based
Michael Douglas?
That it was based on with Michael Douglas. Yeah.
That was a good movie.
Yeah.
American President.
American President, right? That kind of he had his moment. Yeah. You're not the president.
But I learned a lot about homeless. I learned a lot about people. I learned a lot about different viewpoints, and I'm a better person because of all that.
Well, I remember when I met you, or one of the first times I met you, you said, that's the best compliment anybody's ever gave me. Because I said, if I was in your district, I would vote for you. And I didn't typically vote for Republicans all the time.
Yeah.
But I do sometimes, and I have often, because I've always voted for the person. And because that's how my dad was. My dad ran for House of Representatives in 1963.
I remember.
He lost by like 4% of the vote to a 4-time incumbent. 3% to a 4-time incumbent. Wow. And he was really glad he lost.
Yeah. I remember all this.
He did not think he was going to be great at it. But he was always like, I always vote for the person because I know they're great. And that whole idea of bipartisanship of George W. Bush actually getting George H.W. Bush, the first George Bush, getting on a plane, coming to Spokane and planting a tree with Tom Foley, the Speaker of the House, in his backyard, not the other way around,
right.
Where you couldn't even imagine today a speaker and a president even in the same room practically.
I know.
That is what really has ruined politics, and I think you're absolutely right about that, and it's hurt our country, it's hurt our ability to lead and to do stuff, and
yes.
they're doing some bipartisanship right now, which I think is some stuff's getting done. Whether you like it or not, you can get that stuff figured out, but at least do something.
I think America wants that.
They absolutely want that. Yeah, because I think my dad, he was a Kennedy Democrat who ended up being a Bush Republican. Yeah. And today would probably be a Biden Democrat.
Yeah.
Because the spear of how that goes is really depending on, I think, the moral compass, and I think that was a big important piece to him. And I just thought I really admired how you kind of were a real person, and
right.
You didn't act like you were somebody other than you weren't, and you were reasonable. Yeah. And you were smart about stuff, and you made the right decision for the long term, and all that stuff.
Thanks.
And anyway, I mean,
I really appreciate it.
Well, I think that's a huge part of it. I know that you had tragedy doesn't always leave you. You've come a long way, but I have a lot of questions about just the truck. Maybe you can't even talk about this stuff because there's legal ramifications or whatever. But you guys had a freak accident at one of your coffee stands right on Freya and Fifth. A truck runs into it. Your daughter, am I right, was in that building?
She's lucky to be alive.
Lucky to be alive. Take me through that, and what'd you learn about that?
We had it was really about a year ago, last week, I think it was, when a truck, this driver was on meth. He was carrying about 60 or 80,000 pounds of bobcats, gravel, things like that. Took out the building right in front of us. If the previous owners had that building before they sold it, they had staff meetings on Fridays, and everyone would have been wiped out and died instantly because that truck went right through it, and the building is 100% gone. And no one would have known what hit them. Had that building not been there, he probably would have gone through our Dutch Bros building, but he skidded, or the truck was, and you could watch the footage on it. The other building impacted him. We're really lucky he didn't. No customers died. We're really lucky none of our employees died. They all could have been wiped out. My daughter was 30 seconds away of the impact point of the stand. She remembers someone grabbing her shoulder and throwing her to the ground. She has no idea who it was, and no one said they did it. And there wouldn't have been reaction time for that. And
so I always say, you know who that was. Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, that's a divine intervention right there.
Sure.
Yeah. Wow. How are you now about all that?
Well, I've gone through a lot of stages. There's been times where I've been really angry about it, especially the construction company who hired someone who did not have a CDL. Profound negligence on their part. They just ignored it. There's no way they forgot to do it. The individual has a long track record, a long rap sheet. When he got to court, he asked the judge if he had killed anyone. He didn't even know. He's lucky he didn't die too in that, because that could have been... how no one died in that accident is really a miracle. The firefighters who were incredible, the police who were incredible, I heard no less than 10 times, either directly or overheard them saying, "We can't believe there's no casualties of this so far." And our friend worked at the hospital, and we had to go to the hospital afterwards because Amelia got hurt just a little bit, but she was fine. And they had told us later that when the call came over, the speaker of the accident, that they had canceled elective surgeries that day and cleared all the rooms because they expected significant casualties and injuries.
Wow. Grateful? Mm-hmm. Beyond belief every day. You've had a few of these, huh? You ever think about that? Like maybe you're the right person to handle these?
I don't know. I read about a guy who was struck by lightning 3 times in his life every 6 years, and then when he was in the grave, he got struck by lightning again.
Oh my God. Well, it's like the old, you and I play golf. We've done that a few times, and it's like the old the old Lee Trevino joke, right? He's like, he got struck by lightning one time, and he says, I should have been holding a 1-iron. Not even God can hit a 1-iron.
That's so good. That's so good.
All right, enough heavy stuff. I know that leadership's a big part of what you do. I just saw that you made a really nice reference on your LinkedIn page as I stalked a little bit about David McCullough, which we're both fans of.
Oh, yeah.
And you get to meet him.
Yeah, he was phenomenal.
Phenomenal. I mean, a phenomenal historian, right? John Adams, Wright brothers.
Brings history alive.
Phenomenal,
That's right. The Wright
phenomenal writer. But I think, to me, it's his voice. He is one of the greatest narrators in the history of my world. In the history of, he and James Earl Jones, maybe.
Totally.
Two of the best storyteller voiceover guys. And Peter Coyote, who was in the movie that we produced. Those three guys are like the greatest voiceover storytellers ever. What struck you about him?
We were, he's pretty humble, pretty unassuming. And when I found out I was keynoting with David McCullough, I was like, what?
So wait, where was this?
This was in Wyoming.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I was speaking, the governor asked me to speak at the someone from his office asked me to.
We just got bombed. You're in a podcast. Hey, Jim.
This is like Mr.
Parker.
Rogers.
This is
like, are you the mailman of the show?
Look at that.
Let's feed some fish.
I'm great. Welcome to our podcast. You're going to be on. We're keeping this in. This is Kevin Parker from Dutch Bros. Talking about his life and everything that's there. Jim Workland, good to see you, man. Yeah, thank you for bringing that.
You're welcome. Thank you for what you do.
Well, I appreciate it. We're classmates, class of '85, Gonzaga Prep, and we had a little party here,
so
and so he's coming by.
I drive by every day, saw the car, so I figured I'd pop
Oh, that's awesome.
next time I come over.
You did, or whiskey, whatever. All right, man, you got it. Good to see you, Jimmy. Take care. Come by again.
That's so good.
I'm keeping that in this. That's too
You
cool.
should. That's all. It is like Mr. Rogers. He was unassuming, amazing speaker. And so we were speaking at the Wyoming Governor's Economic Forum breakfast. And so he was talking about history. I was talking about modern day leadership, and there was a lot of economists there too.
Boy.
I just felt like, what did anyone ask me here for? I was like the least important guy.
I've been in several of those.
And, and
why am I here with the guy from Harvard?
Then I get to meet McCullough, and I'm like, holy cow! And so I took advantage of it. No one was standing around him, and so I met him, and I've gotten to meet some amazing people. We were at a Dutch Bros event in San Diego. And we're at the Hotel del Coronado, and we're all the franchisees, the owners. We're having dinner out there, and it had been a big day and stuff. It was awesome.
San Diego.
And then this guy is on stage, and he's playing. I hear him play several. I hear him play Windmill. I hear him play some Toad songs. I'm like, he does those pretty well. And he had literally done like 4 or 5 Toad songs. I'm like, dude, get off the Toad songs. And then, and no one's listening. Everyone's chatting. And I'm like, why is this dude just doing Toad, man? If he wants to get discovered, he's got to like do more stuff. And then he does Walk on the Ocean. I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? That was like his 7th Toad song. And I'm like, you're pulling off Walk on the Ocean. I was like, dude, place. And then I'm listening. And I'm like, wait a second. And I start asking everyone, does anyone know who this dude is? No, man, I think the host from the hotel hired him. He's good, huh? I go, yeah, he's good. And I'm like, and I asked like 5 people. I don't know who that guy is. And so then I found the event organizer. I'm like, hey, who is that up there singing? And she goes, oh, you recognize him. That's Glenn Phillips. I said, are you kidding me? Like the Glenn Phillips? And so he rocks all the Toad songs. No, everyone thinks it's some like random singer guy. And so he wraps up and takes a break. And I went up there to meet him. No one's standing around him. And we had a great conversation. So I got to meet Bono. I had an hour. I had about 45 minutes alone with Bono.
What?
That was an amazing experience.
Wow.
That was,
wow.
I used to be an
I've had a few of those too. Peyton Manning and Eli Manning.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I for 15
Legends.
minutes. We were 15 minutes, just the 3 of us hanging out in a green room.
That's so good.
You're right. It's surreal.
Yeah.
Like, whoa. Bono, what was that like though?
The most comfortable celebrity I've ever met.
Wow.
And he was at the U.S. Capitol that day. And I was there because I was doing some work with a member of Congress and some consulting work. And so I was supposed to meet with him and the member of Congress. And the office sent me and said, so I get to it was in the speaker's office actually. And so I show up to and the U.S. Capitol erupted. Bono was on campus. Everybody's talking. No matter you go, you can hear the name Bono. Everyone wants to meet him, right? And then I'm being escorted through this hallway to go meet with Bono. And so I get to the speaker's office, and everyone's outside, right? And so I knock on the door, and I said, hey, Kevin Parker. Oh, yeah, come right in. And I come in, and the speaker's assistant said, hey, listen, Bono is, or the Congress is still voting. They're going to be voting for another, who knows, 30 minutes to an hour. I'm really slammed. Can you entertain Bono for a little bit? And he is over standing by the fireplace by himself. And so I walk over to Bono and I said, I have been sent to entertain you. I said, do you want to talk or do you want to be left alone? And he started BSing with me. We had an amazing talk, like 45 minutes.
Wow. Do you remember any of it? What was the coolest
You know,
moment?
it's funny you say that because I remember thinking, I can't believe a guy like me is talking to Bono. And I'm like, listen to what he's saying. Listen to what he's saying. I'm like,
Remember
it's
this.
Bono.
Write this
Listen to
down.
what he's saying. I had to concentrate. We had an amazing conversation. He talked about the band coming together. It was our Joshua Tree tour again. He told me how they did it.
Wow.
And I played it off like I wasn't really a fan. I'm just like, oh, that's cool. You know, I didn't ask a lot of questions.
Right.
And then a couple members of Congress come in and one of them says, hey, Bono, did Kevin tell you he was just at your concert in Seattle last week? And Bono, after we've been talking for like 45 minutes, Bono goes, how come you didn't say it? And I said, just trying to play it cool, bro. Just trying to play it cool. He was like, rock on. And then he told me more details about the concert.
Right,
but he talked about how
because you didn't do that. Yeah.
he talked about members of the band.
kept the
how a lot
fanboy
of them-
away.
Yeah, how a lot of them didn't want to come back together, but he said, let's do it with a purpose. We have an audience. Let's do it. And
They
so
have a platform. They
he
have
is
a phenomenal
amazing.
platform.
He's friends with
is.
Barack Obama. He's friends with George Bush.
Right.
I mean, he is friends with all of them.
He
and,
is.
And he was on Capitol Hill allocating for defense spending for AIDS patients in Africa. So think about this for a moment. A man from Ireland comes to the U.S.
Right.
and asks Congress, the Speaker of the House personally, which I was there for that
And
meeting.
gets to, by the way, gets to do that. Gets that audience.
And he got it. And the
Right,
Speaker
of
gave
course.
him his word right there. He goes, I will give you will have that funding. And he said, what if the president
Was that
says
Boehner?
no?
Who was that?
No, that was Paul Ryan.
Paul Ryan.
Yeah.
Wow.
Paul Ryan said, I understand Bono. And what Bono did that was so impressive was that he said, to make his case, he said, listen, he took it all the way back to the Carter administration. And he says, does anyone have a pen and paper? And there was like 4 members of Congress in the room or 3. They all hand the paper and pen to him. And then
You
he
need to give us an
bar
autograph.
graphs how much Carter gave, Reagan gave, H.W. gave,
That's right.
Clinton gave.
That's right.
One by one, he wrote their names and bar graphed the dollar and compared it all freehand. And I remember the Speaker of the House thinking, oh my gosh, I get a lot of celebrities in here, but no one has ever drawn bar graphs and can take back defense spending 40 years. And then afterwards, the Speaker said, you're getting your money,
He
Bono.
did his work.
And so
That's
he's helped a
amazing.
lot of people in Africa.
Wow, that's
Isn't that
phenomenal.
amazing? But I made a fool out of myself with Pierce Brosnan. So if you want that story.
What? Where was that? Was
So
that when
Hawaii,
he was
and it was
filming?
random. I was in Hawaii, and I'm a big 00 fan.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm walking by, and Bond walks right by me, and I'm like, what? And I had no shirt on, and I have turtle swim trunks, and I'm like, Bond? And then one of
You
my
were a
friends,
fanboy there.
There I was, and one of my friends was hanging out with him, and I'm like, how are you hanging out with James Bond? And she goes, oh, I just met him, totally cool. And then so I'm like, I would like to meet him. I'm like a huge Bond. She didn't even know the Bond movies, and I'm like, yo, I'd like to meet him.
That's why he was hanging out with her.
So we follow him. So I run around. I'm looking for the shirt. The only shirt I have is my Def Leppard T-shirt, and so I throw that on, and I throw this hat on because I'm like, if I get a photo, I can't be shirtless, right? There's no way he's getting a photo.
I
of me
remember
shirtless.
seeing this photo.
And then I put it on Facebook,
Yes.
and then maybe I'll throw it on again.
The Def Leppard shirt is what I
Yeah,
remember.
it's the same Def Leppard shirt. Man. I wear that thing every 3 days. And then so he's having lunch, and so we stalk like 3 tables away, right? And I'm like, do you think I'm going to get to meet him? She goes, oh yeah, I'll just stand up and say, hey, remember me? My name's Amanda, blah, blah. And I'm like, can you get me a photo? She goes, oh yeah, I'll get you a photo. And so we sit there for 45 minutes. And so I said, wait, it's James Bond. I got to send over a glass of
Martini.
champagne. And yeah, exactly. And so
Steak
the
and
waitress
not
came
shirt.
by and she
Shirt.
said, do you want anything?
Shaken
And
not
I said, hey, I'd like to buy a drink for Mr. Bond. And she goes, you mean Mr. Brosnan? I go, he's Bond to me. And she goes, what would you like? I said, whatever Bond wants. She goes, Pierce Brosnan. I said, okay, whatever. Whatever he wants, I'm buying. And so she goes over to the table. She points to me. I feel like a total dork. And then she comes back and she goes, Mr. Brosnan ordered a $30 glass of champagne. Is that okay? And I said, are you kidding? It's
course
James
it is.
Bond. I'd be disappointed if it was like a
Absolutely.
$10 glass. Absolutely.
Of course, if you're
And
gonna
she
bug
goes,
him.
again, his name is Mr. Brosnan. And then so 45 minutes goes by and he walks off. And I'm like, oh no. And then he comes back and he goes, hey, were you the one who bought me the champagne? I go, yes. And so we started talking and I clammed up. I had met Bono. I've met heads of state, but this was
held
bad.
conversation.
And I was like, it was like Tommy Boy. Remember when you were in like No Time to Die? That was like awesome. It was so bad. And then I'm like, I'm a big James Bond fan. It could not have been worse. And then he was having dinner with President Clinton that night offshore Kauai on a yacht, and he told me all about that. I go, oh, oh, I was in politics. And so we talked about that a little bit. And I still am just making a fool of myself. And it was so bad. And we got a photo. And I guarantee, like, he's doing an interview talking about that dork he met in Kauai and all this stuff.
Oh, my God.
But he's well liked over there.
That was just whole dinner.
And he talks exactly the same. And I told my wife, I go, can you believe that? And she goes, what do you think? It's a fake accent. I go, I don't know, but it's James Bond.
His whole conversation with Clinton at dinner was about you.
Probably this dork that he met.
And I got him to buy me a $30 glass
That's
of
right.
champagne.
I
A
took
glass.
that dork for $30. I traded a photo for $30.
That's probably what did it. Well, so of all these people, who's the most interesting person you've ever met? Or
Probably Bono.
You think so?
Bono, because his scope, he's
And
so
I bet
humble.
the presence that he had.
So humble. It was like talking with you, laughing, screwing off, telling some like deep stories all in one, very interested in who I was, asking a lot of questions, but it was very sincere.
Wow.
He was, yeah, I think Bono. Pierce Brosnan, I feel like I made so much a fool of myself. I can't tell you other than he's very gracious.
You honestly didn't probably relate to him at all. I mean, one way or another, because you were just so in awe that.
I just keep thinking it's James Bond. I met Bono and I'm more intrigued with James Bond.
So funny. Spokane. What do you love about this place? Why still be here?
People.
And what do you hope for its future?
We have the best people in the country. There's, I've lived in 3 different communities, traveled all over. There is no down-to-earth people. Like how gracious you are to me, Frank. I mean, I ditched you a couple times for this thing, and you never got
me.
Yeah, I did. You never
no,
got
you
mad.
you always apologized and said, "I'm going to do this," and I know you.
No,
would.
you were so gracious.
No, you're
but
busy
you're
dude.
like everyone here. Everyone, we have such an amazing community, and we have a community that is like you said it well. You're interested in the person, and Spokane is interested in the person. That's our ethos as a society, and we've been like that. I hope that we don't lose that. And I think if we had less harsh winters, the population would be double or triple the size.
Well, I think it's going to be anyway, because it's not slowing down. I mean, we're not a well-kept secret anymore, don't you think?
Yeah, but the people are. They really are pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was in office, I'd meet with someone who had terminal cancer, and the next day I'd be meeting with, or the next meeting was like Bill Gates' dad. And you have these kind of different conversations, and you're changed by it. And you meet the DD community had a huge impact on me. The homeless community. I had friends in the homeless community. In fact, when one of them died, named Mike, I was asked to speak at his funeral because I'd met him at Dutch Bros. He had helped me on a lot of stuff. I'd become friends with them, and I don't. Maybe that happens in a different society, but or a different community, but no doubt the people here are pretty special, pretty cool.
2 quick questions. I know you got to go. Philosophy of business. What is it?
Put people first. Make a difference in the community. Profits will be there.
Yep, you're right.
Run the business well.
Anything on the bucket list you got left to do?
I don't know.
Go play
I don't know if
go
I've
play
ever
St.
really,
Andrews with
I don't
me.
know if I've really. Yeah, I'd like to do that. I don't know if I've ever had a bucket list though. I mean, I'm always one. I'll take advantage of an opportunity that surfaces.
And they
if I
seem to
can.
show up for you, don't they?
I don't know. Sometimes.
Yeah, they do.
But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
So if you had a magic wand and you could wave it, what would you do?
Give people without hope, because that's what changes all of us, right? It's like that mentor, or give people a mentor. Like when we talk about issues of poverty and homelessness, that largely that's a relational issue. That there's not enough relationships. There's not enough of us investing in homeless people and building friendships with them and reminding them and helping. And they're pretty amazing people. And the truth is, we are all uncomfortably close to that same level of living.
You could be us in a heartbeat.
It could be us pretty dang quick. And some of the homeless community are former business owners, and it went belly up. 3 out of 4 businesses fail, and some are now on the streets. Those are people that risked everything for a dream, and it didn't work out. Some are vets. A lot are vets. Some have mental illness. Some like the streets. But what the most important thing I think we could give, if I could wave my wand, was that every homeless person in our city has a mentor, someone who's going to invest in them and say, what do you need and how do I do it? And I'm going to be in a relationship.
It's amazing you say that, because I don't know if you've seen our home housing and help web series that we produce, but
No,
I'll make sure you see it.
I'll watch it.
Yeah, Gavin Cooley is the host
Okay.
of it, and we're just about to drop our 2nd episode as we film this. But we went to Houston because they have really, probably more than any city in America, have figured out a way to solve homelessness. They've cut it 65% in the last 10 years.
What have they done?
Mostly, a big part of it is navigators. They got on one plan. They got everybody together. They got their egos out of the way. They got business involved. They got nonprofit involved. They got everybody really on the same page and followed one plan. They made sure there's housing and help that goes with it. So basically, it really came down to numbers. The number they gave us was every person that's unhoused in Houston and living on the street costs the community $96,000 a year.
Yep.
If they're housed with services, wraparound services, and a navigator, a person that guides them, it's $17,000 a year.
Well, it's amazing.
So it's just a money,
Yeah.
if you're just a pure capitalist about it, that's the way to go. So that was the big takeaway, is that they have an entire system where they've identified every person, and they have a navigator that they have put in place that oversees maybe 10 or 15 people, and their job is every day to figure out where that person is and how to get them in housing and how to get them help. And it has been remarkably effective.
It's amazing because you know how sometimes you log on Facebook and someone posts you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And that actually came from a study out of Harvard about 70-ish years ago by a professor named David McClellan, who did a lot of research. Mm-hmm. And that was his research. His research was partly who you spend time with is who you most resemble. And a lot of that goes back to the functions of our brain, the amygdala, the hippocampus. It absorbs who we're around.
Osmosis, as they used to say.
Yeah, and we learn things. I mean, think about you. How did you learn to create such an amazing business? Well, there was someone in your life, I bet you, and I don't know that, but I'm going to guess there was someone in your life that kind of provided a lot of input along the way that
Absolutely.
You could call,
Yep.
that pushed you when you said, gosh, should I buy this building?
Yep.
Like, Frank, don't buy the...
Several.
Exactly right. And same with me, right?
Yeah.
I mean, my
that
life
network, the social network.
was changed by people. And so if we want to change a life, we quit, we start asking, what's the human connection to that? And let's start there.
Right. Well,
that's what I would do.
Well, that's why I'm hanging around with you, man. Because someday I want to grow up and be Kevin Parker.
I want to be more like
Hey,
you.
thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
I'd love to come back if you want me to.
I do. We'll do another parter because
I'll try to be more interesting.
America wants more of Kevin Parker.
So good.